needlework. Keep the newspapers from her. I would never let my wife or daughter read the newspapers. And ask her what sermons she has read. Give her books and require her to report back to you their gist to prove she has read them." Leo harumphed loudly. "She is not my daughter, sir, and I have not had the command of her throughout her life. I fear her ill habits are too deeply ingrained, too rooted in the filth of London. I have done my best, however. Our cousin, a delicate lady of exquisite propriety, is her companion. Until recently, Emmeline seemed perfectly happy in the city, attending the opera and meeting with a group of ladies for Bible study and to aid the wretched. All suitable enough pursuits. I might wish she would take a husband, but I have more important matters in my own household, sirrah. I have daughters to find husbands for. This latest, bout of melancholy, I suppose I would name it, a kind of hysteria, you see, most unfortunate and poorly timed, has been the result of the death of our uncle, Sir Jacob Paulding. Poor uncle. Some terrible things have been whispered about him, none of which are true, of course, but people will talk. It has affected Emmeline greatly. He was a favourite of hers from childhood, as she was to him." Emmeline, one fist on the door, stiffened. Every impulse in her rage that she must pound on the wood, burst into that room, denounce her uncle, and set right Leo's characterization of her current anger. But she bit her cheek, let her hand drop, and commanded herself to still. Her brother had continued along that line, and then said, "Would you not say that is true, Dr. Woodford? That Emmeline's current melancholic hysteria is, at its root, resulting from our uncle's demise?" Woodford's murmur was too low. Not even pressing her ear to the door would reward Emmeline with anything beyond a rumble of sound. "Why is it that the stupider the male, the louder his voice?" she grumbled, pacing away. She would have given much to know how Woodford handled such a statement. Leo I can hear clearly, Dr. Coleman nearly as well, and Woodford not at all. Dr. Giles Woodford, a long-time St. Germaine family friend, was probably the only reasonable one in that room. He was one of the few who knew about her part in exposing her uncle for what he was, one of the few who she trusted. He had reluctantly agreed to aid Emmeline in her current mission, and had convinced Leo that if he was determined to send his sister to an asylum, the Coleman Institute for Genteel Ladies in Distress, shortened to the Coleman Institute most often, was the best choice. At least it was true. Emmeline was in distress, but she didn't anticipate any help in this place. There was a purpose behind Emmeline's choice. Her dear friend and fellow crone, the name by which she, and others who rescued abused scullery maids and young ladies in dire straits referred to themselves, Lady Adeline Sherrington, had received a visit from a much-troubled woman whose married daughter had been incarcerated at the Coleman Institute. The woman, Dame Smytheson, feared for her daughter's life, convinced that Mr. Finburn Pendrake had a nefarious scheme to rid himself of his wife, who was profoundly troubled by the loss of their baby, at just 5 months old. She had another, more personal mission, to find out what really happened to her younger sister, Maria, who died at the Coleman Institute 6 years before, after starving herself to skeletal appearance. She jumped up again and put her ear to the door as Gillies watched, sympathy in her pale eyes. The Scottish maid knew of Emmeline's plans and was fearful but determined to aid her mistress. "They are quieter now that they have divvied up the blame for my execrable behaviour and decided that no one is to blame but myself. Now they can go about deciding how best to cure me by making me even more wretched." The journey from Chelsea to the Coleman Institute had been done in stages. She and Gillies had travelled in his carriage with Woodford from Chelsea to Verburn, and, following the doctor's orders, stayed at an inn in that village the previous night. All entering and returning patients did so, Coleman had informed her brother, so they could arrive at the Institute first thing in the morning, at the fresh beginning of the day. Sometime in the wee hours of the morning, while Gillies snored on a trundle bed in her inn chamber, the full gravity of what she was undertaking bore down on Emmeline. Convince Mrs. Pendrake to leave the Coleman Institute. How would she do that? She wasn't even sure that Dame Smytheson was right about the woman's husband conspiring to get rid of her, the most extreme of her suspicions. And did Emmeline truly want to know about Maria's last days? She had done her best to overcome her anguish after Maria's death 6 years ago.